It is December 2018, and it is that time of the year, as the title says, the best and worst cameras of 2018. What's the best? What really stood out among the rest? And what let us down? What was the worst? And there really is a worst this year, camera-wise. Let's break it all down. I'm going to have 3 segments. I'm going to cover honorable mentions, cameras that, did pretty well. They were interesting, but nothing that really blew me away. Then I'll do the worst and the disappointing ones, and then we'll jump into the best. And I posted on my community tab on Facebook. Most of you don't know what that is. I barely know what it is. It doesn't reach a lot of people, but a couple hundred of you at this point voted on it, what you think would be the camera of the year. So I'm going to post that poll looking thing here, just so you could kind of see the mindset of everything and see if it matches up with me. But let's go over some honorable mentions real quick and then get into the meat and gritty of the story. Now for this set of lists, I really don't put anything in order from like best to worst or anything. But honorable mentions, I'm going to mix together Panasonic's 2 beasts from the year, the Panasonic G9 and their GH5S. And the G9 for Panasonic was a bit different from what they've done with just the regular GH line, the 4 to 5 to 5 to S. So the G9 I felt was a little bit of a blend. Now you were able to find that guy, all depending if it's on sale, between $1,300 to $1,700. Which also was a little bit different of a price because a lot of the GH stuff you're finding for $1,500 and up. So it was something right around the same. Mind you, it did drop a little bit of price over the year, but you went off that way. You got 4K video at 60 frames per second, which is pretty much the standard now if you should be going 4K. 6K photo mode that they were touting, and this new big 80 megapixel high resolution mode, hence why I said there's a mix, more of a mix between the video and photo aspects in this camera. That and the 5-axis in-body stabilization. So that's the G9. Cool. Very good to see Panasonic doing something. Nothing 100% that blew me away. 100% worth a mention. The GH5S. Kind of more of a baby step up from the GH5, obviously. With an interesting 10.28 megapixel sensor. 4K video at 60 frames per second. You've got basically everything that you need. Internal 422 shooting, V-Log. You have a lot in these bad boys right here. So if you're in the Panasonic line, a lot of people I know did upgrade to either one of these cameras, mostly the GH5S, but that's why they're worth a mention because pretty exciting stuff. Number 2 is the Olympus Pen EPL9. Now Olympus doesn't get a lot of love, and they kind of should because they do a very, very good job, especially being, micro four thirds, very portable, and they do great image stabilization. Now with this entry-level 4/3 camera right here, you're looking at something roughly around $600 to $700, depending, how you buy it. 3-axis in-body stabilization. Once again, Olympus does very, very well with that. They've improved their face and eye detection with this, and a lot of people noted that in their reviews. And they do have 4K video at 30 frames per second. Nothing mind-blowing, but a little bit of steps more for Olympus if you're in that pen line. Number 3 is the Canon M50, which is filming me right now. And I really felt that this handled a lot of what I wanted to do. To go a little bit more lightweight, to simplify things. It's got a mic input, a flip-out screen right here. Does, in my opinion, very, very good 1080 video, even at 60 frames per second. The 4K video, fine, whatever on it. But you lose the dual pixel focus on it, so that's where it loses me a little bit too. But 1080 and under, at 60 frames and under, you get the dual pixel autofocus, which to me holds up, probably one of the best, and it tracks very, very well. So the Canon M50 for what it is, definitely worth a mention, but it's not like the most innovative thing of the year. It's from Canon. Number 4 is the Sony RX100 Mark VI, which I feel a lot of people did forget that it did come out this year, as well as the other camera I'm going to mention. Now you're looking at the $1,200 Pocket Beast right here, which you see popular a lot of vloggers and Sony photographers is having a backup camera or a smaller, camera that they can put in their bag or their pocket because of all the features that it delivers. To me, it still loses in regards to a little bit of the AF. It still has some of the minor IQ issues that the Mark V had. But with those aside, and it is still a little bit overpriced for what it is and no mic input and all that kind of stuff. There are so many good features packed into it as well. Video-wise, video heavy-wise, frames per second, 4K, blah. I see why a lot of people like it. And the fact that it has that 24 to 200 lens on it, which starts, I think, 2.8 and goes up to a 4.5, I believe. It's a very, very good range for going up there as well. So I see why it's very, very popular. There's a lot of features in it. It's just still a little bit off for me, but definitely worth a mention if you're into the line. Rounding out this list, once again, it's a camera that people forgot that came out this year because of what the Fuji X-T3 did. It's the Fuji X-H1, which was a change to their body style. It's the first one in that XH line. I expect an X-H2 to probably come out in 2019 or 2020, and it's one of the first Fuji cameras to have 5-axis image in-body image stabilization. So with that, a lot of video people were going that route, and I even know, and I think they were with the Camera Store TV then, Chris and Jordan, they shot like one of the Wood Nichols films exclusively with the X-H1. And with the 4K and the F-Log in it, it was absolutely fantastic, and to see how they graded it looked amazing. So definitely worth a mention. You know, it's interesting how it's kind of gonna compete against the X-T3, which has a lot of great things in it, you know. So I don't know, but the X-H1, 1,700 bucks, not too shabby. The worst cameras of 2018. There is one that severely stuck out. That is the Yashica Y35. It's that toy-like plastic camera that essentially raised over $1 million on Kickstarter, but everyone was disappointed. Not one person I know or really saw said that they liked that plastic-like Digifilm camera, as they were calling it. And one of the things that was funny is, one of the taglines from the Yashica thing was, "Expect the unexpected." Well, people did not expect what you gave them. Looking at it in the video, looked like a cool concept, but in reality, people broke it down. It was this garbage camera, and you had these little film packets that you put in that represented your ISO and everything, that you would have to change them out. It's a gimmick. It didn't work. It's too expensive for what it is. That's why it's literally the garbage camera of 2018. I would love to see anyone argue that one. So that Yashica is the worst. Now, these aren't the worst per se that I'm going to mention now. They're just disappointing cameras, and cameras that kind of didn't make sense for the year as well. And one of the ones I want to start off with is the Fuji X-T100. It's a $500 or $600 Fuji entry-level camera, not an amazing sensor. It really just didn't fit in the line. It does 4K at 15 frames per second, which, if you know video, is absolutely useless. You will literally puke looking at that kind of footage, but it's just smaller and can take X-mount lenses. Yeah. Now, let me preference this point. I own the iPhone XS Max. I paid for this, like $1,200. I'm an iPhone guy. I'm not sponsored by Apple or Google, but the XS Max, the camera, is probably one of the worst I've seen in the past few years from the Apple camera line. I really love what my 7 Plus had compared to it. It does this weird beauty softening stuff on like everything. Now, it's not extremely horrible, but it's very disappointing that the technology that they had, that's still an issue. There is still no firmware fix to fix some of the gobbledygook that comes up with it. Definitely worth mentioning, a disappointment this year. I'm sure they'll improve it. They better, because the Pixel, hint, way better. Earlier this year as well, the Pentax K1 Mark II came out. That really got no hype because it really added nothing to the Pentax line, and it's essentially just a repurposed Mark I for that matter. Now, a year or two ago when the Mark I came out, I was able to use that, and I actually really enjoyed that, and I actually had that up there as one of the cameras of the year for what it offered. A lot of people love the pixel shift and everything like that, and that's one of the biggest things, but this literally didn't offer much. You're still at almost 4.5 frames per second, which is not fast. A lot of people say it's more of a landscapey type camera. If you want to go for that, absolutely look at that. And then 1080p 30 frames per second video. So once again, you're not looking video for that regards either. So if anything, I still say look at the K1, as it's way more affordable and it's pretty much the same camera. And one of the last things I want to add to the disappointing, and probably obvious, it's the Canon EOS R and the Nikon Z6 and Z7. Now, I reviewed the Canon EOS R, and I've had a hands-on with the Z6 and Z7 actually. And I'm not saying that they're awful cameras. They were just disappointing for the price on a lot of these, for some of the things that they were excluding. It's really just kind of saying the same things all year. They both could have really hit a home run this year, really stepped up to compete in the mirrorless line, and both really didn't in that regards. The lenses seem promising for Canon. They're very overpriced. The lenses for Nikon are priced a little bit better, but they're not built amazingly. The cameras, once again, have those same drawbacks and limitations that we were annoyed with. So I'm not going to hash those out, but definitely worse that they're not the worst cameras. They're fine, but they're not worthy of the honorable mention and kind of skating out of that line. They were a little bit of a disappointment. So just being real there. So that was the worst and disappointing cameras of 2018. What do we got for the best? Now this I have a little bit more in order of importance from what I experienced over the year, from either being hands-on, knowing other people who are using it, and just knowing what to look for in these types of cameras. Number 4, so we're going 4 to 1 here. Number 4, I covered the iPhone and the disappointing one. It's very fair to say the Google Pixel 3 and 3 XL, not a sponsor, not anything. I had a lot of time to use it. I still own the phone. Has one of the best, if not the best camera in a smartphone here. It's worth mentioning. That night sight is literally mind-blowing. If you don't know what that is, look more into it. I have a review just talking about it a little bit and just showing you a weird example in pitch black, and you get a picture from it, and it's a little noisy, but it's still usable. Yeah, that's definitely got to be up there for the best of the year. And I didn't really mention this, but I actually purchased a GoPro Hero 7 Black this year, literally just a couple weeks ago, and I've been extremely impressed from everything I've seen in regards to the image quality, the interface, and the hyper stabilization that it has. And it literally looks like it's on a gimbal, but it's everything just built into the camera. I have it on my desk. I don't feel like getting it and showing it, but the 7 really blew me away. And this was the first time I've actually been impressed with something from GoPro, probably since the Hero 3. Hero 3 was years and years ago. They've been pumping out a lot of unnecessary, a lot of garbage for the past few years, in my opinion. You know, charging that $400 or $500 price, I finally feel for the first time this $400 price is justified, mainly from the fact of having this hyper stabilization and what that technology is and how it works. It's simply mind-blowing. I haven't heard one complaint about that. If you have any, or if you agree with that, just let me know down below. It's actually pretty phenomenal for that. And number 2 and 1, I'm going to combine into one. You might think I'm cheapening out here, but I really can't distinguish these because one is crop and one is full frame, and at this point, I think you know it's obvious. And it's going to be the Sony a7 III and the Fuji X-T3. Not because I'm a fanboy of either or, I'm a very realistic person. The Sony a7 III and the full frame line for Sony really opens up, and for the price, basically any type of photography you want to do with that. The video features are still phenomenal with that. The autofocus is snappy and everything. Well worth every dollar into that if you want to get into the line to start. And then the Fuji X-T3, which I reviewed recently as well. I mean, I don't know what else Fuji could have done with that camera for the most part, except have that 5-axis in-body stabilization like they did with their XH1, but I see they don't want to compete with that 100%. They should probably kind of kill off the XH line, concentrate on shoving everything in that XT line, XT3, possible XT4, and I mean, they are crushing sales with those right here. But that's what I have right here. The best Sony a7 III, Fuji X-T3, and the worst, that Yashica. But let me know your thoughts. Did I miss any cameras here? Do you think I was wrong on some of them? I know because I probably said some were disappointment. It's, you know, it's going to rile a few of you up, but be very realistic here with all the technology that came out this year. I know a couple of you probably forgot some of the ones in the list that did come out earlier this year because we had this huge conglomerate hodgepodge around the Canon, Nikon, you know, all coming through at once with their mirrorless and how all that came through. But that is the best and worst of 2018 camera-wise. I'm sure I've said 2017 somewhere. It's the best and worst of 2018. Let me know your thoughts down below. And it was interesting to see how the YouTube poll came to my, you know, my thoughts as well. But that's it. Let's hope 2019 can bring something interesting.